Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shujra and these are the headlines. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has told the OIC that India is trying to change the demography of occupied Kashmir. Meeting OIC Secretary General Yusuf bin Ahmed Al Uthmani in Niger, Qureshi said the far-right Indian government is not only a threat to Indian Muslims, but also jeopardizing regional peace. He urged the OIC to take a leading role in discouraging rising Islamophobia across the world. The Ethiopian Prime Minister says the military will begin the final phase of an offensive in the Tigray region. The announcement comes hours after the ultimatum for Tigray's rebels to surrender has expired. Hundreds of people have been killed and some 40,000 have fled to Sudan since the fighting started on November the 4th. Thousands of fans are paying their final respects to Argentine football legend Diego Maradona at the Presidential Palace in Buenos Aires. 3 days of national mourning have begun in the country after the national hero died following a heart attack on Wednesday at the age of 60. 1 million people are expected to visit his casket. The global number of COVID-19 infections has crossed 60 million with more than 1.4 million deaths. India's death toll has exceeded 135,000 after another 524 people succumbed to the disease in a day. Pakistan registered over 3,300 infections and 40 deaths in the past 24 hours, pushing the overall death toll to 7,843. Burkina Faso President Roch Kabore has won the re-election by a comfortable margin. He bagged over 57% of the vote in the election held on Sunday. Over 350,000 voters did not cast their ballots due to security threats. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has told the OIC that India is trying to change the occupied Kashmir's demography. Meeting with the OIC Secretary General Yusuf bin Ahmed Al Uthmani in Niger, he said the Indian government is threatening not only its Muslim population, but also jeopardizing regional peace. He also urged the OIC to take a leading role in the discouraging and rising of Islamophobia across the world. The foreign minister is leading Pakistan's delegation at the 47th session of the OIC's Council on Foreign Ministers. He will also hold bilateral meetings with his counterparts and heads of delegations of member states on the sidelines. Pakistan has called on the United Nations counterterrorism bodies to act on the dossier containing evidence of India's sponsorship of terrorism in the country. At a weekly press briefing, the Foreign Office spokesperson urged India to renounce the use of terrorism as an instrument of its state's policy. Zahid Hafiz Chaudhry also rejected India's anti-Pakistan propaganda. It stepped up following the presentation of the dossier. Discussing the situation in the occupied valley, he said Indian forces have martyred 14 Kashmiris in faked staged encounters this month alone. He called for a transparent inquiry into the extrajudicial killing of Kashmiris. Brushing aside speculations regarding the recognition of Israel, the spokesperson said there is no such option under the consideration.
There is no change in Pakistan's principled position on the issue. The recognition of Israel is not under consideration. The Prime Minister has made it clear that unless a just settlement of the Palestine issue satisfied to the Palestinian people is found, Pakistan cannot recognize Israel.
A group of Pakistani Hindus residing in India have started returning to Pakistan. They recently migrated to India to benefit from a controversial citizenship law that New Delhi's Hindu nationalist government introduced last year. But just months into living in India, they realized that it was not the Hindu paradise that they hoped for. This report has the details.
The new Indian legislation laid out a path to legal immigration for Hindu migrants from Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh. However, Chetan and his family soon found out that the reality of life in India was different from what they had expected. The native of Sindh province's Thando Adam was relieved after his return and said he just wants to go home.
My name is Chetan. We used to live here in Thando Azam. We went to India on a pilgrimage visa and wanted to stay there for a while. Then the coronavirus lockdown was implemented and it took us 11 more months to come back. Even after submitting all the documents, we wanted to get a fresh start in India, but we faced a lot of difficulties over there and decided to return to Pakistan.
The 243 Pakistani nationals, including those who are stranded in India due to COVID-19, are permitted to travel via the Wagah border. Another Pakistani Hindu, Aju, said their stay in India was plagued by difficulties with no support from the Indian government.
We found no support in India from the government there, and that's why we have returned to Pakistan. We are happy here in Pakistan and eager to move back to our homes we left. We were not happy in India as it was quite difficult to live over there, and we came back.
Both Aju and Chetan's family are happy to come back and are grateful to the Pakistani authorities for welcoming them. They also appealed for justice for the mysterious death of Pakistani Hindu family in Jodhpur city of India's Rajasthan state in August. Pakistan has repeatedly called for the Indian government to release the necessary information on the incident, but to no avail.
Pakistan has joined the Digital Cooperation Organization as a founding member. The organization was launched at a virtual event hosted by the Saudi Communications and Information Minister, Abdullah Al-Sabah. Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan, Kuwait, and the UAE have been invited to join the DCO. Launched as an initiative of Saudi Arabia, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi took part via video statement. He said the creation of DCO will cater to the need of international cooperation in the digital domain. Digital democracy has been a core component of the Foreign Minister's public diplomacy initiative. Australia has issued show cause notices to 10 of its special forces soldiers. This comes after a government report identified war crimes by the soldiers in Afghanistan. State media said the Defense Department initiated administrative action against serving special forces members. It stated the personnel served notice are suspected to have been witnesses to murders carried out by other soldiers. The media reported the Defense Department has given the incumbents 14 days to respond to the charges. They added they may also apply for an extension to provide their written response. The Ethiopian military is set to begin the final phase of an offensive in the rebellious northern Tigray region. In a statement, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said the 72 hours ultimatum for Tigray forces to surrender has expired. More about the Tigray conflict in this report.
Lives of the people of Ethiopia's semi-autonomous Tigray region changed forever on November 4th when bullets and bombs started raining down. Hundreds have died while the devastation has forced thousands to flee to neighboring Sudan. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said the country's military will launch the final operation against the rebel forces. He said the forces will not harm innocent civilians, heritage sites and development institutions during the operation. He warned the public of Mekelle to disarm, stay at home and stay away from military targets. But rights agencies say civilians have already experienced their share of troubles in the conflict.
It breaks my heart. It is a harrowing story. It devastates me beyond I can explain it, to see my country in this situation and how fellow Ethiopians have brutally attacked other fellow brothers and sisters. So it's such an unimaginable tragedy.
Men, women and children of non-Tigrayan origin were butchered for ethnic cleansing in one of the most grotesque massacres of the recent times. The federal government rejected international calls to end the offensive, calling it interference in internal matters. But it called for the international community to condemn the atrocious acts of crimes against humanity in Maikadra.
They have personally visited the crime scene, a mass grave scene. They have seen bodies lying around in the town, actually, because they arrived while this was very fresh. So we've been able to get a detailed accounts of what has transpired in Maikadra directly from the victims and their families.
Currently, Ethiopia is at the watershed moment as the deadline given to Tigrayan People's Liberation Front to surrender has expired. The victims wonder if the end to the deadline will prove as a last straw.
Burkina Faso President Roch Kabore has won re-election by a comfortable margin. Kabore bagged over 57% of the vote in the election held on Sunday. Over 350,000 voters did not cast their ballots due to security threats. Kabore's opponents have raised concerns about the validity of the vote count, but the Electoral Commission dismissed those concerns, while an international observer mission gave the polls a clean chit. Azerbaijan has rejected a French proposal to recognize independence of the Nagorno-Karabakh region. In a statement, the Azeri Foreign Ministry says the French Senate's resolution is completely biased and provocative. It said the French Senate should do activities that facilitate peace, stability, and progress in the region rather than disputes. Yesterday, the French Senate passed a resolution calling for the recognition of the Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, while earlier this month, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia signed a deal to end the 6 weeks of fierce fighting in the Nagorno-Karabakh. The United Nations says Israel's prolonged closure and military operations in Palestine has left Gaza's economy on the verge of collapse. A recent United Nations report says Israel's occupation cost of Gaza's economy $16.7 billion. The report, titled Economic Costs of the Israeli Occupation for the Palestinian People, estimates the cost to be 6 times Gaza's GDP in 2018. It says Israel's annexation and siege have pushed more than 1 million Palestinians below the line of poverty in just 10 years. The report stressed the urgent need to end the closure of Gaza so that its people can freely trade with the rest of the world. Since June 2007, 2 million Palestinians have been under a prolonged closure inside the 365 square kilometer area of the Gaza Strip. Iraq has warned that ISIS has scaled up activities in Iraq, urging international cooperation to stop the terrorists. Iraqi Foreign Minister Fawad Hussein says ISIS has become more active as compared to the past several months. He said that the group still exists in certain areas in the provinces of Anbar, Kirkuk, and Diyala and Nivi. He also stressed that Iraq needs cooperation with foreign intelligence and defense agencies to defeat ISIS. Baghdad declared final victory over the terror group in late 2017, while operations to identify the sleeping cells continue. An explosion has rocked a Greek-managed tanker docked at the Saudi Arabia's Red Sea port of Shukik. The Saudi-led coalition in Yemen has blamed the Houthi rebels for the attack. The coalition said the commercial vessel suffered minor damage from shrapnel and in what it described as a foiled terrorist attack. The vessel's Greek-based owner said that it was attacked by an unknown source while preparing to depart from Shukik. He said all 25 crew members on board are safe. The tanker was carrying no cargo when the explosion occurred. The Saudi Coast Guard say an investigation is underway. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. China has slammed the United States over announcement of its latest sanctions against 4 Iranian entities. At a news briefing, a foreign minister spokesperson said China had lodged severe representations with the United States over the matter. Zhao Lijian said that Beijing urges the United States to correct its mistakes. Earlier, United States Special Envoy for Iran said Washington was set to impose sanctions on 4 entities linked to Tehran's missile program. Elliot Abrams also accused Chinese and Russian entities of promoting Iran's missile program. The envoy warned that Iran must brace itself for face more sanctions in the coming months. The United States has unilaterally blacklisted Libya's Kenyatta militia and its leader over human rights abuses by the group. Last week, Russia vetoed a United Nations Security Council resolution calling for sanctions on the Kenyatta group. In a statement, U.S. Treasury Department said Kenyatta group is responsible for murders of civilians. It said the militia is also responsible for torture, forced disappearances, and displacement of civilians. Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin said the sanctions have been imposed under the Global Magnitsky Act, which allows the United States to target human rights violators worldwide. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Moscow will deliver on agreements it had made with Belarus in Sochi. Lavrov said that this meeting with the Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko in Minsk. The Russian foreign minister sent regards from President Vladimir Putin in a gesture of support for Lukashenko. Lukashenko said Belarus is ready to chart its own path to confront the challenges it faces. He said Minsk is ready to overcome all those problems together with Moscow. Lukashenko is facing weeks-long domestic political crisis, with thousands regularly protesting and calling for his ouster. The Russian military says it has successfully test-fired a new missile of the country's anti-ballistic missile defense system. The missile was launched from the Sareg-Shang firing range in Kazakhstan. The ministry said the new interceptor missile reliably confirmed its characteristics after a series of tests. It added the missile struck the neutral target with the preset accuracy. The previous test launch of a new ballistic missile was conducted in late October on the same testing ground. Russia's ABM system is designed to defend the country against strikes by potential enemies' aerospace weapons. In Turkey, a court has issued life sentences to nearly 500 defendants, including army generals and pilots, over the 2016 coup attempt. State media says 25 F-16 pilots have been aggravated life sentences, while 4 civilians have been given 79 life sentences. The defendants have been accused of attempting to kill President Tayyip Erdogan, toppling and bombing the parliament. Former Air Force Commander Akin Öztürk has also been given a life sentence on the basis of attempting a coup. The Turkish government has blamed the supporters of U.S.-based preacher Fethullah Gulen for the failed attempt of the coup. Total 475 people have been on trial, and 365 of them are under the custody of Ankara. Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani has arrived in Turkey to attend the 6th meeting of the Supreme Strategic Committee. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan welcomed the Qatar Emir at the official ceremony in Ankara. The two leaders will discuss steps to boost the current $2.5 billion bilateral trade volume in energy, defense, and food sectors. During the meeting, they will also discuss regional developments in Syria and Libya. 7 deals were signed at the previous Supreme Strategic Committee meeting between the two countries last November. The two countries have strengthened military and economic ties in recent years. The global number of COVID-19 infections has crossed 60 million, with more than 1.4 million deaths. India's death tally has exceeded 135,000, with 524 new deaths and over 44,000 cases since yesterday. Meanwhile, Sudan's former Prime Minister Sadiq al-Mahdi has died of coronavirus in the UAE. More in this report.
The holiday season is already proving to be a super spreading factor as the COVID-19 surge skyrockets across the world. The latest spike in the Americas alone has infected over 1.5 million people over the past 7 days. Canada imposed curbs in another province, Saskatchewan, aimed to restrict capacities of many public places to slow the spread of COVID-19. Down south, Brazil has reported nearly 50,000 new cases and 654 deaths overnight, pushing the toll over 170,000, while Mexico City has launched a new test and trace approach amid rising cases.
Lockdown's effectiveness has not been fully demonstrated. Many times they are carried out to exalt the authoritarian attitude of an official. You have to trust the people, convince citizens instead of imposing, that too not by force. Because authority tends to feel arrogant. It wants to limit the freedoms of citizens, thinking that the citizens are minor.
The World Health Organization's data shows that Europe has been the biggest global contributor to new cases and deaths in the last week. Meanwhile, Turkey has signed a contract to buy 50 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine from China's Sinovac Biotech. France also reported fresh surge in COVID infections and deaths as it registered 380 deaths and over 16,000 new cases overnight. Struggling to contain the pandemic, Germany has extended restrictive measures until at least December 20th.
Daily infection numbers remain at a level that is far too high. Enormous efforts are being made in some of ICUs. Reports from Robert Koch Institute for Infectious Diseases that 410 people died of COVID-19 in the past 24 hours reminds us in the saddest of ways that there are human tragedies behind the statistics, lives which sometimes end much too soon.
Elsewhere, South Korea has reported its biggest cases spike since March. The country continues to grapple with the third wave, forcing it to reimpose tougher restrictions.
In Pakistan, 40 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours, raising the death toll to 7,843. The health ministry says over 3,300 people tested positive for the disease overnight. The ministry said there are more than 43,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. It said out of nearly 386,000 countrywide cases, almost 334,000 have recovered so far. The ministry said over 167,000 cases have been detected in the province of Sindh, while the Punjab has reported over 116,000 cases so far. In the capital, Islamabad, more than 28,000 people have been infected so far. In India, police have fired tear gas and used water cannon to disperse anti-government protesters. Thousands of farmers gathered in the northern Ambala city to condemn Prime Minister Narendra Modi's new farm legislation. Protesters raised slogans and vandalized barricades as they clashed with police after they were stopped from entering New Delhi. Prime Minister Modi's government has defended the farm measures and will allow farmers to sell institutional buyers. The government said that it will still purchase staples as rice and wheat as guaranteed by prices. But such assurances have failed to calm millions of farmers who make up an influential voting bloc in the states of Punjab and Haryana. 5 people have died after a raging cyclone Nivar slammed into India's southern coast, uprooting trees and power lines. Officials say over 227,000 people were evacuated from low-lying areas of Tamil Nadu ahead of the storm's landfall. They say Cyclone Nivar hit the Tamil Nadu state with winds up to 130 kilometers per hour. Heavy rains inundated the Chennai city while overwhelming its sewerage system. The city's seaport and airport remain shut while the state has declared a public holiday. India's meteorological agency says Nivar will weaken to a low depression by tomorrow. The United States has granted a 7-day extension to ByteDance to sell TikTok's American business. TikTok court filing shows a new deadline that will be the 4th of December. A U.S. Treasury spokesperson said the extension will allow time to review a revised submission by the company. ByteDance made a new proposal to address the Trump administration's concerns. Earlier on November 13, the United States announced a 15-day extension for ByteDance to reach a deal with buyers. The Chinese firm has been in talks with Oracle Corporation and Walmart to set up a new entity, TikTok Global. Washington's several attempts to enforce restrictions on Chinese short video sharing app have been blocked by the United States courts so far. Shanghai has risen to become the most connected city in the world. China's economic capital has dethroned London as the coronavirus pandemic shakes up the international travel. The International Air Transit Association says the world's 4 most connected cities are now all in China. IATA spokesman Sebastian Mikosi said London has seen a 67% fall in air connectivity. He added the pandemic has undone a century of progress for connectivity between cities. Other massive transportation hubs, including New York, Tokyo, Hong Kong, and Thailand, have also seen a sharp reduction in connectivity. Meanwhile, China has been gradually opening up travel corridors and negotiating quarantine-free travel agreements with various countries. Domestic violence against women fueled by economic crisis is an issue that has long plagued the Latin America region. The economic fallout of the COVID-19 has only made matters worse. Thousands of women in Chile, Peru, and Bolivia took to the streets to demand an end to the rising incidence of violence against women. More in this report.
In Latin America, a region where almost 20 million women and girls suffer sexual and physical violence each year, lockdowns have led to a rise in domestic abuse. To mark the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, thousands in Chile, Peru, and Bolivia are protesting. Women say they are at great risk being trapped with their abusers amid the pandemic.
In this pandemic, the femicide of women has been aggravated. To date, we have more than 111 femicides, women who have been assaulted in their homes.
Angry protesters said the fear is so intense that the majority of women are scared to even leave the confines of their homes.
Women can no longer go out into the streets to walk like normal people and not be afraid to be the next victim.
The region has seen huge marches and strikes by women over the last year against male aggression and abuse.
As Germans try to bear out the coronavirus pandemic as best as they can, a humorous take on the restrictions is providing passers-by in Frankfurt with some festive cheer. A restaurant is serving a packed room of panda bears. More in this report.
It is not every day a restaurant finds itself serving a packed room of panda bears, especially ones who are partial to a cold corona or two. Giuseppe Fischer, the owner of a Frankfurt restaurant, is staging a protest against the coronavirus lockdown in Germany. He has filled his tables with 100 stuffed toy pandas in a play on the word pandemic.
Wir wollten das Lokal mit Leben füllen.
We wanted to put some life back into our restaurant. We thought of teddy bears, but the teddy bears became panda bears because panda and pandemic, and so they are pandemic pandas.
German officials have agreed to extend the lockdown until December 20th, imposed on November 2nd. It means bars, restaurants and entertainment venues must stay closed while shops and schools can remain open. But in the Pinot, the pandas are seated at the restaurant's tables and propped up at the bar.
Das ist ein stiller Protest, ein Angebot an unsere.
It is a silent protest, an offer to our guests, and we will keep it lit for 24 hours as long as there is a lockdown. So our guests, our potential guests, can see this and enjoy it around the clock.
German government has said it will extend financial aid for firms hit by the restrictions. Experts say the aid can go up to 20 billion euros in December to an estimated 10 to 15 billion euros bill in November.
It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. The Wall Street stocks have traded lower as investors focused on disappointing unemployment data. The S&P 500 index traded at a lower fraction. Dow Jones Industrial Average also declined nearly 1%, but Nasdaq Composite outperformed, rising about 1%. Meanwhile, oil prices rose for the fifth day following a surprise drop in crude inventories. Tributes are pouring in from around the world after the tragic death of football legend Diego Maradona. Brazil great Pelé, Barcelona captain Lionel Messi, and Portuguese star Cristiano Ronaldo paid rich tributes. The Argentinian icon passed away at the age of 60 after suffering a cardiac arrest in his home. He was battling health issues and underwent a brain surgery 2 weeks ago. More about the great football legend in this report.
Maradona captained Argentina when his side won the 1986 World Cup, scoring the famous Hand of God goal against England in the quarterfinals. The attacking midfielder played for Barcelona and Napoli during his club career, winning 2 Serie A titles with the Italian side. He scored 34 goals in 91 appearances for Argentina, representing them in 4 World Cups. Maradona led his country to the 1990 final in Italy, where they were beaten by West Germany before captaining them again in the US in 1994. Despite widespread fame and success, his career was not without its fair share of controversies. During the second half of his career, he struggled with drug addiction and was banned for 15 months in 1991. He retired from professional football in 1997 at the age of 37. Following his death, Argentina's President Alberto Fernandez has declared 3 days of national mourning. The state funeral for Maradona will be held at the official residence of Argentina's president. In Buenos Aires, people began pouring onto the streets to mourn the nation's favorite son. Football players and fans have also paid tribute to Maradona. Brazil football great Pelé said, "The world has lost a legend, and one day he hoped to play with Maradona in heaven." Barcelona captain Lionel Messi called it a very sad day for all Argentinians and for football. Portuguese star Cristiano Ronaldo said the world was farewelling an eternal genius and an unparalleled magician who was departing too early. Spaniard Rafael Nadal led the tennis world in paying tribute, saying today the world of sports in general and football in particular has a void.
In the UEFA Champions League, Real Madrid have claimed their first ever win at San Siro, beating Inter Milan 2-0 in a Group B encounter. Eden Hazard converted an early penalty, while a second-half own goal from Achraf Hakimi sealed 3 points for the Spaniards. The win moves Real up into second place in the group, with only 1 point behind leaders Borussia Mönchengladbach. Earlier, Gladbach cruised to a 4-0 victory over the Shakhtar Donetsk to stay on top of the group. In another fixture, Atalanta scored twice in 4 minutes to upset Liverpool 2-0. Defending champions Bayern Munich booked their place in the knockout stage with a 3-1 victory over Red Bull Salzburg. Red Bull sporting director Jonathan Wheatley has become the third senior public-facing figure to contract the coronavirus. The 53-year-old tested positive during a mandatory testing in the United Kingdom last week and will miss this weekend's Bahrain Grand Prix. Earlier, Pirelli F1 boss Mario Isola tested positive after the last race in Turkey. Williams acting team principal Simon Roberts also missed Turkish Grand Prix as a result of the coronavirus. Last month, Racing Point driver Lance Stroll missed the Eiffel Grand Prix, while his teammate Sergio Perez missed 2 races in July. Victoria Government Minister Martin Pakula says the Australian Open is expected to be postponed by 1 or 2 weeks. He said Australia is not going to jeopardize its fight against COVID-19, and an extremely rigorous testing regime will apply to the players. The first Grand Slam of the year is scheduled to take place in Melbourne from the 18th to the 31st of January next year. The COVID-19 quarantine regulations in Victoria does not allow players to visit the state until the end of December at the earliest. Tennis Australia has been hoping players could arrive in Melbourne in mid-December and quarantine before starting the season on the 1st of January. The French Open was delayed by 4 months because of the coronavirus pandemic, while Wimbledon was cancelled in 2020.
Most likely.
It's now time to take a look at the weather around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.